Hey, welcome once again, guys. So we'll start the pattern drafting by working on the buttonhole position. So I'll be marking 1.5 inches, and this 1.5 inches I'm marking would actually be what will be folded inwards. So when you have a shirt on that buttonhole line, there is an excess measurement that was actually folded inwards, and that would be what this 1.5 inches would account for. So I'll join all the 1.5 inches back point with a straight line, and I'll be showing you how to go about making the buttonhole position. Your buttonhole position is actually 1 inch, not 1.5. So you take your 1 inch from that 1.5 inches back. You will do that at different positions close to each other. Then after taking all these positions, we'll be joining with a straight line as well, and that will be our buttonhole position. So when you see the part of your shirt that contains the buttonhole that the buttons pass through, it is actually mostly 1 inch wide. So we'll be dividing that 1 inch mark into two, and that would mean we'll be getting the center position of the 1 inch mark, and on that center position would be where the buttonholes would be exactly. So that is actually the buttonhole line. So the 1 inch is the buttonhole position, while half of that is the position of the buttonhole line. So that will be the line where the buttonholes will be made. That line is the most important line when you are making a shirt, because that is the center of your shirt. So I'll take 1/2 inch from the edge. This is mostly not even necessary for me to explain, but I will just take my time to explain it. So that 1/2 inch you see me taking on the edge will be bended before I actually fold the remaining 1 inch underneath the 1 inch position of the buttonhole. So I'll first of all bend this 1/2 inch. All these I'm supposed to do with my fabric and not even this pattern paper. But I just want you to understand what we are doing since we are just starting. I don't want it to be like we are starting on a wrong foot where you don't even understand what we are doing and we are progressing in error. So I just want you to know what we're doing. So we'll bend the 1/2 inch and we'll also fold the 1 inch mark. Like I said, the whole 1.5 inches mark we took initially would be what will be folded underneath your buttonhole. So when you have your buttonhole line position on the shirt, there is actually something that was folded underneath it. So you just don't sew empty edges of shirt like that. You fold something to cover the edges, and that's that. So after folding that, you could see that we are already progressing, and I'll be going straight to the next part of the pattern drafting after I finish folding what will be underneath this buttonhole position. And next, I'll start taking my horizontal measurement. So I'll start with the chest line. I'll mark 10 inches from the top like that. I'll do that on two different positions, and I'll be using my long ruler to join both points to create my chest line. The next line is my tummy line, and I'll be marking 17.5 inches from the top, and that is for males. For females, you can mostly use 16.5 or 16 depending on the height of the female you're working with. Now for my shirt length is 30.5 inches. You can make yours 29 or 30 inches, but the ranges of the length of a shirt are mostly from 27, 28, 29, 30, and most times even 30.5, as you see me doing so. So I would also join the tummy line as well. Now after getting these vertical measurements, I'll go straight to the markings of my neck. I'll mark 3.5 inches downwards. Now from the buttonhole line, which is the center, I'll mark 3 inches, and I'll be making a curve to that effect. From the buttonhole line, I'll take my back measurement, which is 9 inches from the buttonhole line, and I'll come down by 2 inches. I'll join to the neck part like that, and that line will be where I'll take my back measurement from. From the buttonhole line, I'll take 9.5 inches on that line. I'll take the perpendicular measurement, which is the straight line measurement, transfer it to the chest, and I'll join both points with a straight line. Now on that line, I'll be dividing into two, coming forward by 1 1/4 inches. Then I'll be using a curve. You can use your free hand or a curve to join the back to the chest. We'll start taking the actual measurement from the buttonhole line. So like I said, the buttonhole line is actually the center line. So the chest was 40, you divided by 4, which was 10 inches. The tummy was also divided by 4, which was 9.5 inches from the buttonhole line. The hip to 10 inches from the buttonhole line. So I'll be making use of my ruler to join all points like that. So I'll join the chest to the tummy and the tummy to the hip. I'll be adding 1/2 inch for the sewing allowances all through like that, from the hip to the tummy to the chest. And after adding, I'll be making use of my ruler to show you the added sewing allowance. So that seam allowance you see me added, so the seam allowance you see me adding will be responsible for the sewing of the hip, tummy and the chest alone. Now for the down curve of our shirt, you just divide it by 2, go up on how high you want it to be. This was 1.5 2 inches, so depending on how high you want it to be, you can make yours 1.5 or 2 inches. So I'll also be marking out my curves. That's the curve for the neck as well. And after doing this, I'll be cutting off. Before cutting off, I'll go straight to the markings of the line. So the first line is our shoulder line, that line is our neckline, and that is our chest line, our tummy line, or the half length line, depending on how you want to call that, and that is our hip line. So for the side, we'll just call that the side line, and we'll call the excess 1/2 inch the sewing allowance. Then that will be our armhole line, armhole, not armhole. Then the center point of that would be our buttonhole line. We've cut out the front piece, so to cut the back piece, it is a little bit technical. You place the edge of the back piece on the buttonhole line. So the back piece will start from the buttonhole line of the front piece. So that center broken line will actually be where the back piece will start from. So you can see me using my pin to hold it down on that buttonhole line like that. So like I said earlier, the buttonhole line is actually the center line of the fabric. So I will use the front piece to cut out the shoulder line of the back piece. Then after that, I would remove my pins. After removing my pins, I will readjust downwards by 2 inches. And that 2 inches readjustment would be, so I marked out the neck first. You can see I used my marker to mark out that neck position. Then I readjusted downwards by 2 inches. That 2 inches would account for the sewing allowance of the shoulder line and also the folding of the down line. So I'll pin again after readjusting to that 2 inches mark, making sure everything is still on the buttonhole line. That is, the back piece line is aligned to the buttonhole line. So after pinning both together on the down part, I'll continue working. So the next thing I'll do now would be to fold the excess 2 inches on the top to meet the shoulder of the front piece. So remember, I actually marked out that point, so I'll use my tape rule to remark the half point of that armhole line like that. Then I'll come forward. So I'll come forward by 3/4 inch on that center part of the armhole. Then I will join. But all these are not actually the right measurement. So the right measurement would be to take the back measurement from that point like that. So I'll take the back measurement, which is 9.5, and this will be the real back measurement. So from that point, I'll join to the curve like that. so I'll be able to cut out the back from there like that. But also, what I will do is to actually use my pins to hold it down properly to make sure nothing deviates when I'm cutting. So I'll be able to cut out the back armhole like that, and also the side. Mind you, you would see that I haven't started working on the neck of the back piece. So I will do that after I cut out the body shape of the back piece. So I'm cutting the hip line. The neck is very important when you're actually cutting a shirt like this, because the back and the front don't start from the same line. The back actually starts from the buttonhole line. So I will repin it down and make sure I get what I desire, because the neck must start from the buttonhole line. So that is why I'm pinning it down, because when you join the front and the back, both must overlap on the buttonhole line. So I'll make a curve like that to meet the neck curve of the front piece. After making that curve, what I'll be getting will not be final. I'll keep reducing the down part of the back neck to get my desired shape, because it looks a little bit pointed upwards. So I'll keep reducing until I get my desired shape, which I finally gotten. This is the fabric we are working with. It is a polished cotton. It is very close to being a jean, but not a jean. It is not also a chinos material. So it is just in between polished cotton and jean. If you scrub it with both hands, you'll see what I'm talking about. I have 3 yards of it because I'm actually making a vintage shirt and a cargo pant trouser. These are the badges we'll be working with. I actually bought that one, while the remaining ones I removed from my old shirt. So if you have ready-made old shirts and you don't actually have any use for the badges on the shirts, you can go ahead and remove them to use. The more the badges, the more beautiful the outfit would look like when you are done making it. We'll start using our pattern paper to cut out the fabric. Now, when you are sewing a vintage cargo shirt, I will show you some things you never expected we are supposed to do. So the first thing I did was to cut out the front pieces of both sides. Now the front piece of the right will be different from the front piece of the left. That is the part that would contain the buttonhole. The part that will contain the buttonhole for a male outfit is mostly the left. So this is the left part we'll be working with. So what we actually cut out would be only for the right part. Now for the left part, I'll divide that into two like that, and the reason I'm doing all this is because the left part will contain an external attachment to create the buttonhole line. A normal shirt, I'll just cut both exactly the same like that and start working. So I divided that part into two and I'll cut off, and that ½ inch that is left would be a sewing allowance instead of a folding allowance. For now, I'll just continue cutting, then I'll use this to cut out that part, only that part like that. So the cutting of the right part of the front piece would actually be different from the cutting of the left part of the front piece. And this is actually a form of design when you see your shirt, and there is a folding of ½ inch it would have after sewing, and that would also be a form of design. So I'll be showing you all this in the course of the video, so just keep watching. For the right side of the front piece, the 1½ inches folding excesses will be worked on. So what you just do is you fold by ½ inch on the edge as we did when we were drafting the pattern. Then you fold the remaining 1 inch to the other side. After folding the remaining 1 inch, you sew on the edge
and that's that. And that would be the part that will contain the buttons. For the part that will contain the buttonhole, it is a bit stylish. So I'll be creating a panel I'll be adding to it. I already folded that panel by 1/2 inch on the side. So I'll place that right face facing wrong face of that side. Then I'll stitch by 1/2 inch all through. After stitching by that 1/2 inch, you can see we've actually joined the panel to that side. Then what you do now is you turn it to the other side. So you use your sewing machine to stitch on the edge of the fabric, not the panel. So after stitching, you will now turn. So after turning, you will make sure the wrong face doesn't show on the right face. So after doing that, you will make a 1/4 inch stitch. You will not sew on the edge, or you sew 1/4 inch away from the edge, because you need that folding on the edge like that. So you leave a 1/4 inch space and make your stitch down. Then you also make another 1/4 inch stitch on the left side like that. We've made our 1/4 inch stitch on both sides. You would see the excess folding on that side, and that is a form of design. So we do that for the buttonhole position, and you can also do that for your short sleeve if you are working on a short sleeve, but this is actually a long sleeve. So but if you are working on a short sleeve, you can do that for the edges of the short sleeve. So you could see all the sewing line on the wrong face. I'll go straight to the cutting of the excesses of the downline and also on the neckline. So after that, it's pretty much straightforward, since we've done that for the other side as well. The other side we just folded by 1/2 inch and stitch. You know, when I say 1/2 inch, I mean 1/2 inch first, then 1 inch, like we explained when we were drafting. Then you overlap each other by 1 inch and you use a pin to hold it down. I actually used tiny stitches to join those places like that, so you could see the gap in between the stitches. So after joining with the stitches, I'll go straight to the cutting of the back cape. So there is a cape we'll be sewing on the back piece, and you have to use the back piece to cut the cape. So that's the cape. I folded the down line, then I'll close it up like that. So I just cut this randomly. Now I'll use the back piece to cut out this back cape, following the shoulder line, the armhole, and also the neck line. So only the down line will just remain the way it is. While cutting, I took a brief pause, and that is because I realized I need to use pins to hold it down if I want my cape to be exactly the same shape as that of the upper part of my back piece. So I'll be using pins to hold it down on specific positions like that. Then I will go back to my cut. And this is because if it is not exactly of the same shape, there will be laggings when you are joining. So you just make sure you pin it down like that. And if you are working with a fabric that is not as strong as this, make sure you add interface to your back cape even before cutting. Because if you don't, you just get something that is totally different shape, or something that will not even be the same size with the back piece of your fabric. And when you are joining, you'll find out you spend more time trying to correct your job than moving forward. So after cutting the back cape, I'll remove my pins. Then I'll go straight to the joining of the front and the back piece. The back cape is actually what you use in joining the front and the back piece. That is, when you use your back cape, it makes your sewing lines invisible. I'll show you what I mean by that. So what I mean by that is I'll place my back piece like that. Then I'll place the front piece on the back piece. You can see the back piece is 2 inches longer than the front piece on the down line now, which was what we actually took on the upper part. So after placing both shoulders to be exactly of the same position, I'll place the back cape too. So I'll make a 1/2 inch stitch to join all three pieces together like that on both sides. After stitching both sides, you have two options. It's either you use your pressing iron to open it up on from the top, or you make your stitches on the top like that. For me, I'll be making double stitches on the top, and that will be enough to hold it down. That's the double stitches on both sides. So you could see that place is settled. There's no lagging, no folding there. So what I will just do now is rearrange and make another stitch on the down part, and this time that stitch would hold the back cape to the back piece. And for this, you can make single stitch, double stitch, triple stitch. You can even make it far away from the edge. I've stitched the back piece to the back cape like that, and I gave a 1/2 inch distance away from the edge. So it depends on how big the folding you gave is. So that will determine the distance you can give away from the edge when sewing. So you could see I'm very keen on measurements. After opening it up, you will see that the size of the front is almost the same as that of the back. Next on the menu is the fixing of our badges and the creation of our cargo pocket. So those are the badges that will be on the chest region. Then our pocket will be there and also there. So I'll be showing you the distance you need to give when you are actually creating your pocket. So the pocket, you will just mark from the upper part of your material like that. Then after marking, you do that for the left and the right side. Then the distance of your pocket away from the center, your center is your buttonhole line. So you will mark the distance away from the center 2 inches to the right and 2 inches to the left. So that is the distance. If you're actually working for a kid, for a little child, you can use 1 or 1.5 inches depending on the size of the little child. So this is where we'll be ending our part 1. So check out the part 2 for the continuation of this video.